The most common issues that arise in forums where piano teachers and voice teachers get together are complaints about parent communications that have gone wrong, whether it's about a missed payment or maybe a child not getting ready for a recital and the teacher feels like the parent should have had a bigger role in it, or if it's just things like, common occurrences, dropping a kid off too early, dropping them off too late, blah, 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 all these things, these are issues that we deal with, and it's probably one of the things that you've struggled with over the years. I know personally I've struggled with it. So that's what we're here to talk about today. We're talking about one simple tip that will help you to improve parent-client relationships in your studio. And if we can improve those relationships, we're going to be solving all kinds of issues before they even start. So I'm really excited to share these tips with you today. If you are joining me live, be sure to say hello and let me know if you've dealt with, communication breakdowns with parents in the past. And if you're watching on the replay, know that I love to come back and have conversations with you. So whether you're on the Book of Face or on YouTube, be sure to say hello in the comments if you're watching this later on. Hey there, Laura, Jennifer, and I see Lisa is here. Nice to see you all. So we are going to be looking at one simple tip that you can use to improve client communications, and we're going to break it down into steps that are super doable. So let's get started. Welcome to the broadcast, everyone. If you're new here, my name is Sara Campbell, and I am a business strategist, mindset, and marketing coach for music studio owners and online education experts just like you. And I go live here every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern, where we talk about those topics, where we unpack business strategies, where we look at the mindsets that we need to have in place in order to make those strategies work, and where we talk about all things marketing. So welcome to the broadcast. Today, we're going to be talking about how we can improve parent-client relationships. And I've got one big tip for you that we're going to break down into very doable steps. Plus, I've got a freebie for you. So I hope that you're going to enjoy this. I have a little PDF that you can download today. So let's get started here. For those who are watching live or on the replay, we love to learn out loud during these broadcasts. So if you hear something that is valuable to you and you would like to put that out into the universe, maybe tell yourself, hey, I'm going to do this thing. Give us a hashtag takeaway and let us know what that value is. It's great for the teachers who are watching on the replay because then they can see all of the good stuff that happened. Since this is our second week now going live on YouTube as well, I want to remind those who are watching on YouTube that you can subscribe to the channel. If you look up Sara's Music Studio on YouTube, for those of you who are watching on Facebook, check out the YouTube channel because we've got some new content that's going to be added in there that's going to be YouTube specific. So I'm really excited about that. All right, so I told you that I have a freebie set up for you all. We're going to get to that in a second, but I do want to remind you, if you have a teacher friend who you think could benefit from joining in on this conversation, I invite you to tell them about this now. So if you have somebody that you're like, ooh, I think so-and-so could really benefit from, some tips about client communication. If you have a friend, let them know about this. All right, so let's get to it here today. I do have the Savvy Sara bot set up. This is for those who are on Facebook. If you drop a parent in the comments, then you're going to get, the Savvy Sara bot will message you on Messenger, and she will set you up with some of the recaps from today and all of that goodness. For those who are watching on YouTube, I have that set up as well. Hey, Lee, I see Lee and Lisa and Elizabeth are all on YouTube, so that is fabulous. I'm going to give you guys a link to where you can download the show notes. So this is where you can get a hold of that. And okay, let's get to it, shall we? So many things to do. Okay, so let's just unpack the problem for a second. All right. As I mentioned at the top of the broadcast, some of the biggest issues that we face are having to deal with miscommunications or breakdowns in communications with our parent clients. And I say the word parent clients because as music teachers, if you teach K through 12, you in fact have two clients, not just one. You have the student who comes into your studio or that you teach online, and you have the parent who is involved in the scheduling and the payments. And, as, being a good piano or voice or ukulele parent, they are part of the educational process with their child. So we need to remember that this is a very important relationship to foster. And we all know that you've probably had like a parent relationship that's gone sour. I know that I've had my share of them. And so the tips that I'm talking about today, you're going to implement them in some slightly different ways. First, I think it's important to remember these tips for new clients who are coming in. So if you have a new parent who's joining the studio, then you can start implementing these tips from the beginning, and it sets the precedent for how that relationship is going to go, and it really helps build positive communication, positive and clear communication routes from the very beginning. Now, if you've had a relationship with a parent that maybe has gotten a little bit difficult over the years, then it's time to think about how can we improve this. So I hope that this step that we're talking about today, this one big thing, is going to be a big game changer for you. So you guys ready to know the one big thing? If you're ready, give me a ready below and let me know that you are with me. Okay, we're going to bring up, I forgot one slide. So let's bring up this guy here. So we're going to say the one big tip is this. Sorry, I'm shaking the screen. All right, I see some readies. I see Leishan over on YouTube says ready. Elizabeth, which is also Lisa, says ready, and Amy is also ready over on the Book of Face. Okay, so here's the one big tip. Maybe. Communication is key. And this is what we really want to lean into. So clear communications, frequent communications, and making sure that we are leaning into asking for what we need. And sometimes it can be difficult to do that. It may feel easier to sit in a place of resentment and to feel icky about a situation because we have not communicated what we need from that parent. Or if we have, perhaps the communication has gotten lost along the way. And so we're going to examine how we can improve our communication skills with clients so that we don't have to deal with, texting back and forth constantly or not getting any texts or emails at all and, feeling resentful because a client is not understanding what we're asking. So we're going to break this down into steps today. Here's step number 1. Okay. Oh, well, thank you, Amy. Such valuable advice. I appreciate that. Okay, so the first step is this. When we're talking about creating clearer communication, email blasts are not the only solution. And I know when you have a large studio, it's intimidating to feel like we have to be reaching out to like 30, 40 people. But the problem is, I think that we've become over time so reliant on email communication that we believe as soon as we hit that send button that it's done. But let's be honest. It's not done. I know that me personally, I need multiple reminders for things from email because life moves so quickly nowadays that it's hard to keep track of all of the things. And, sending out an email blast that has a whole bunch of important information might be a good thing to do, but we need to realize that there needs to be other forms of communication if we want to really make sure that we are getting the right stuff to the right people. So let's have some clear examples here. Pardon me while I adjust this because my microphone is drooping. Got a droopy mic here. All right, let's see if that's going to stay there. Okay, so let me give you some examples of this. So for instance, let's say that you have a a student who is not, is not getting prepared for a recital. You've got a recital coming up in 3 weeks. You have two choices at that point, right? You can send out an email blast to the entire studio that says like, it's time to get your kids ready for the recital, and like include all these steps for that one student that you're really worried about. Or you can do the tough stuff and you can reach out to that parent and talk specifically to them about your needs. And in order to do this, there are many different ways that we can approach it, and we're going to look at that. I see that. Yeah. Haha, droopy mic sounds like a personal problem. And yeah, Leishan is right. Hashtag truth. Email is not enough. It really is. It's truly not enough. And so my first bit of advice to you in improving parent-client communication is to stop relying on email blasts as your only way of communication. There are a couple of ways that we're going to lean into how we can improve that communication aside from the email blast. So here we go. Number one, communicate regularly one-on-one with parents. What? I know that feels like really intimidating, and I'm just going to make that one-on-one bright pink because this is the important part, okay? So communicating one-on-one is super important, and I know that can feel intimidating when you have a ton of people in your studio. Actually, I would love to know from those who are listening, how many parent clients do you have in your studio right now? Give us a number. I don't have as many students nowadays as an intentional choice, so I have 6. I have to think about that because I have multiple families that have 2 kiddos in the studio, and I have a couple of adults. But so there are 6 parents that I have to communicate with regularly, but it was not that long ago when I had, 25, 30 parents that I had to communicate with regularly. I see this. Yeah. Like Christine, this is great. She's like, eek, talk to grownups. Yeah. Yes. And Lee, this is a good point. Like younger parents might not read the emails. She says she has 20. Jennifer has 20. Lisa says 20. Amy says 92. Amy, I know you're a multi-teacher studio, so that's a lot, right? And Laura says she has 16 families, right? So it can feel a little overwhelming to think about talking one-on-one with parents regularly, but there are easy ways for you to do this. So let's break this down, right? Okay, so if you're communicating one-on-one regularly with parents, here's what it might look like. Let's say that you have a student who maybe in the past has struggled with practice, has struggled with, and let's even lay the practice aside. Between lessons, right? Things are not getting remembered. Maybe books are not getting sent to the studio, or a concept that you went over extensively in the previous lesson is just lost on them at that point. It's not their fault, right? It's not this kid's fault. But what needs to happen at that point is that the communication needs to be through the parent to talk to the parent about how they can support their kid. And sure, you could send out the email blast to all of the parents, but that parent might be so busy at this point, and that's one of the reasons that they're struggling. They don't know how to support their child at the piano or at the oboe or whatever they're taking. So what that might look like can take a lot of different forms. So maybe at the start of the semester, you reach out to the parents who you feel that could benefit from a little more support from you, and so that they can support their kid at home. I've done this in the past and it worked super well. Let me give you a little story. I have a student who, we'll call him M, and he's super brilliant, like super smart kid, and really passionate about playing. But what was happening, I had the feeling, is that he was only playing like 1 or 2 songs that we had learned the last year, and he really liked to play them. And his goal was to get them as fast as humanly possible, because you know how 9-year-old boys are. I was that person too. So they're working so hard. He was working so hard at getting these 2 songs fast that we had already passed. But what wasn't happening is that he wasn't focused on some of the new material. And so each week was quite a slog because we weren't able to get any momentum going forward. And so what happened is that I called up his mom and I talked to her and I said, hey, M is super, super good at playing the piano, but here's what's happening. I need your help with this. Can we make a plan? Can we devise a plan in order to support him more? And she was 100% on board. She had no idea that he wasn't practicing the things that he was supposed to be practicing. And so she and I devised a plan where I would be going at the end of each lesson, I'd come up and talk to her and I'd tell her, actually, this is so cute. This is good. Instead of me telling her what he was going to practice, I had him tell her. So I said, okay, why don't you tell your mom what you're going to be practicing this week? And he would walk through the new song that he'd learned, and then he would hand her his assignment sheet. And so he had, a step-by-step process that he could follow. By me reaching out at the start of the semester and talking to her about this, everything changed. He went from maybe learning one or two new songs a month to learning one or two new songs a week. And he became happier. I became happier. The parent became happier. Everybody was happier. So we can look for, getting into these problems before the start of a semester. That's a natural place to start because, it's a fresh start. It's a new day. And you can talk to those parents to say, hey, I wanted to touch base with you about how you and I can support so-and-so over the next several months. And then some other times you might want to consider before a recital. Because I've seen this. I just saw this last week in a couple of forums. I saw teachers who were upset about the fact that certain kids were not ready for recitals. And part of it is that, those kids just don't have the discipline and the learning skills yet to hold themselves accountable to get ready. And it's time for us to get the parents involved so that they know the expectations. So at the start of a semester, a month or two before a recital. And then let's talk about good stuff too, because, improving parent-client relationships doesn't have to be all about, saying that things went wrong. That's terrible, right? We actually want our client communications to really dig into the good stuff as well. So when something wonderful happens in the studio, let that parent know. It can be as simple as sending a text message to them to say, hey, I just wanted to touch base and let you know that Caroline really wowed me today when she came in and sang this piece that she had learned on her own. And I just wanted you to know that I think she is doing a fabulous job in her lessons. How long will it take you to type that text? 25 seconds? It means so much to that parent to hear that good feedback, that they understand the value that you're bringing to their child's life. And so, take that extra second to send that support, to send that, yay, this person did it, text or email. And then, okay, switching gears again, if a student is experiencing a rough patch, don't be afraid to reach out to the parent to involve them, to say, hey, I've noted, and actually, full disclosure, I have a phone call to make this afternoon with a parent. So there may be times in a student's music career that life gets in the way and, they're just really struggling. So don't be afraid to reach out to the parent to say, hey, I have noticed that so-and-so, when they show up to their lessons, they're feeling really distracted. It seems like they're struggling with, balancing the workload that they have at school. And I wanted to touch base with you to see how we can best move forward and how I can best support this student. So reach out in these times when you know in your gut, right? You know that things are not headed in a good direction. And then reach out and talk to them. Okay, so I've been blabbing for a really long time here. I see there's some good comments. There we go. Elizabeth says, if I email, I've taken to texting to say that there's an email. I think that is really smart. It's really good stuff here. So let's look at the next thing. All right. Now, you may be panicking and thinking oh my God, Sarah, this is so much work. Why are you giving us this advice? Because if you have 30 or 40 students in your studio and they all have parents, that's a lot of parents. But here's what I will say. I encourage you. I invite you to build this stuff into your lesson time or your lesson prep time. You don't have to carve out hours and hours each day to do this kind of stuff, but you can start building this into your practice and into your system. So for example, if I have parent-client Try that again. Parent-client communications that need to go out after I've had a lesson with somebody. At the very end of the lesson, I will encourage the student. I'll say, okay, we have 5 minutes left. Here's what we're going to do. I want you to check over your assignments and go over them with me. And then for a couple of minutes, I would like you to focus on what you think is going to be the hardest thing for you to work on this week. So I'll let them go into practice mode for a second, and that gives me time to grab my phone or hop onto my computer and to send that notification, that email, that text to the parent right then and there. And of course, shock of shocks, build it into your lesson time and use the last 5 minutes of the lesson to talk to the parent. If they are coming into your studio, come upstairs a couple minutes earlier and let them know that that's going to happen. Like at the beginning of the lesson, say, hey, I wanted to touch base with you about a couple of things that I think you could help me on. So we're going to come up a few minutes early so that you and I can chat. Is that okay? And, just make sure that they know what to expect. And then in those, 3 to 5 minutes that you have at the end of the lesson, when you come up to talk to them, or if they come down to talk to you, I say up and down because I have stairs in my studio. I realize that's not always the case for people, but in those 5 minutes or so, that gives you the opportunity to touch base, to talk about how you can create the parent-student teacher triangle, as I say, because we are all one, we're each one corner of that triangle, and we need that triangle to be in place in order to have a solid foundation. All right, so let's see here. I see some great comments here. If you've heard something that's valuable to you, go ahead and give us a hashtag takeaway in the comments. I see Laura says her takeaway is that during the first week of November, she's going to offer parents to come in for the last 5 minutes of lessons to chat. I love this. Excellent. Deborah says, it's so important to build this into the lesson time. Otherwise, there's quite literally not enough hours in the day. Exactly. And that's why when I was preparing this particular broadcast, I thought, okay, let's make sure that we talk about the fact that all of this should be built into the lesson time. Because remember, this is super important. They are not just paying you to teach their child, right? They are paying you to create a solid music education experience. And part of that experience is getting those parents involved. And so setting that expectation from the beginning with new parents is great, or reestablishing that importance with the parent as they continue through your studio. It's good stuff. Sally says, great idea. Oh, awesome idea. Okay, awesome. Very good. All right, so let's get to a speedy recap here. Let's see. And as we go, one more thing to give you guys. All right. I want to let you know that I have a PDF for you that I'm sharing today. It is about text and email tips. And so it's called Tone Matters, because we all know that like the tone of what we write in an email and, what we write in a text can be misread. So that's the topic of it. It's all about text and email tips. And if you wanted to get a hold of this, there are a couple of ways that you can do that. One of the ways that you can do it is that you can go to savvymusicstudio.com/tone. Or if you want to get that delivered via Messenger, if you drop a parent below, if you're on Facebook, you'll be able to get that. And then also for those who are on the YouTubes, here's where you can go to get that as well. I'll include that link down below. So the link to the freebie is right here. If you're watching on the replay, look in the description and you'll find that link as well. Okay, so let's go through a rapid recap. If you guys are here with me, let me know. All right, here we go. It can be very frustrating to have communication meltdowns when it comes to parents in our studio. Whether it is, a parent who you believe has not supported their child enough before a recital, or if there are late payments, or, any kind of communication issue that kind of breaks down and withers. Well, it's super important to think about how can we improve those parent-client relationships. And here is one very specific way that you can do that. The way that we can do that is we need to improve our communication, right? So that communication is key. So in improving the parent-client relationship, we're going to lean into different ways that we can communicate. Here are a couple of ways that you can do that. The first thing to remember is that email blasts are not the only solution. While I know it can feel like easy to send out that email because you got 40 clients, remember, emails don't always get to people. People are busy. They end up in promotion folders. They end up in spam folders. So if something is really important and you are sensing that there is a breakdown in communication between you and a specific client, it is time to lean in to communicating one-on-one with them. So I encourage you to communicate one-on-one regularly with your clients, and this can take place in all kinds of different ways. It could be texting them, it could be emailing them, but remember, emails sometimes get lost, or it could be talking to them in person. And I'll mention, since so many of you are online teachers, it could be touching base with them before you have an online lesson with their kid to say, hey, I'd love to meet with you for the last 5 minutes during the lesson. Can you make yourself available for those 5 minutes? And making sure that we communicate regularly one-on-one with people to let them know how they can support their child best, how we can come together in that parent, teacher, student triangle that is really necessary for success. So contacting people before the start of a semester to let them know how they can be involved, contacting people prior to recitals to let them know how they can support their child moving forward. And then, of course, contacting them when amazing things happen. If something good happens in a lesson, shout that out. Text the parent. Let them know. And, involve them in the good stuff as well. So I know this might sound overwhelming, but remember, I invite you to build this practice into the actual lesson time or lesson prep time. Now, when I say build that into lesson prep time, I don't want you to take your lesson prep time that was this long and then make it this long, right? So use that time in lessons, because it's the time that they are paying you for. It's not just time. It's all kinds of things that you're doing outside of the lesson. And so you can use that time as a means to communicate one-on-one with those parents. Now, if you want to get a hold of the PDF that I have for you, I have a free PDF that's called Tone Matters, Text and Email Tips that you can use with parents to increase your parent-client communication. You're going to be able to get a hold of that if you go to savvymusicstudio.com/tone, and you can download that little freebie. All right. Thank you so much for being here, everyone. I appreciate you taking your time out of the day to watch this, whether it's live or on the replay. And I look forward to chatting with you next week. If you do want to get a hold of those goodies, look for the links. And I look forward to seeing you the next time. My name is Sara Campbell. I'm a business strategist, mindset, and marketing coach for music studio owners and online education experts just like yourself. I hope that you enjoyed today's broadcast. I look forward to seeing you next week. And in the meantime, stay savvy and stay you, because there's no teacher who's quite like you in this entire world. And I think you are pretty dang awesome. We'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.